Have you ever wondered what was out there in the night sky? Stared up at the stars in the hopes of seeing something out of the ordinary? Have you heard unexplainable noises coming from a vacant room, or watched a shadow cross the wall in front of you? Have you asked yourself if there is life after this one, or if you had life before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? If you have, you were on the fringe.
Hey, this is Mark with What If Tomorrow and What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. Be sure to check out our website, whatiftomorrowmedia.com, and look at our cool merch. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, posters, and more. Our affiliates are Duke Cannon, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and Conflicted the Game. Or check out buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. And as always, be sure to like, comment, and share on both Facebook and YouTube. It helps get our content out to others and help our channel grow. Now on with the show.
And hello to all of our party people out there on the interweb. I'm Mark.
I'm Pam.
And I'm Jess.
And this is What If
And I'm
Tomorrow
Phil.
on the Fringe.
No? Okay.
Yeah, well, Phil is...
I'm Phil.
Oh, well, Phil will pop in if he gets a chance.
Yay.
Before we get started, I have a few tiny bits of housekeeping to go over. One is we have changed the title on our On the Fringe YouTube channel to What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. So if you need to go find that, it is a lot easier to search. And also the link is on our Facebook group if you want to go look for it there. We noticed it was really hard to search. If you go search it for podcasts on your podcast provider, it comes right up. But YouTube, there were so many people who had named their shows or episodes on the Fringe that it was almost impossible to find. So hopefully that helps everybody find that. So we can wean everybody off the What If Tomorrow YouTube channel for On the Fringe. As we get started, this show might get cut short. We are having some electrical issues here in town. We had a storm sweep through this weekend, and a lot of trees are in precarious positions. We actually lost Pam just prior to the show when her power went off for a good 5 or 10 minutes. So should we lose power, fear not. We will just retry this episode, the first of at least 2 that we will be talking about resonances and cymatics. So if we fail due to technological issues, then we will retry this episode in 2 weeks. So on with the show.
Awesome.
Pam, you're a resident expert, non-expert. So would you like to kick us off, or would you like me to kind of introduce the subject?
Do you want to introduce the subject, and then we can?
Sure, that's great. Tonight we're going to talk about harmonic resonances and cymatics. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, cymatics, basically, if you take a frequency and you vibrate a plate or water, it creates a pattern. And these patterns have been known throughout history. If you look at some of these ancient temples, many of the random geometric patterns on their walls are actually visual representations of sound. So if I take a metal plate on top of a speaker and pour, say, salt or something on it and play a frequency, it'll form these geometric patterns. So these have been around a long time. People have been aware of them. And there is a new branch of science emerging that, lo and behold, they found out that all these ancient cultures were correct, and these frequencies have direct effects upon the human body. And there is also conjecture out there that these frequencies were used to do such things as to cut and lift stones, um, to harm one's enemies, and all sorts of things. And there is there's beginning to be quite a lot of scientific support for many of these theories. So, with that, Pam, would you like to take it from there?
Sure. Actually, I think it's interesting, a couple of points that you just made there, when you were talking about using it to harm your enemies and things like that. It brings me back to remote viewing, which is something that I have a pretty good interest in. If you know me, you know that. And there was during the 70s, it was the administration that was in power at the time. They brought remote viewers on board because the Russians were bringing remote viewers on board. And the Russians actually had someone in their group that we, as I say we, meaning the United States, is 100% sure that they were utilizing something like this resonance to off people. Um, and they were making their heart stop. They were causing aneurysms. They were doing all kinds of funky things to people and claiming, oh, no, that wasn't us, when they knew darn good and well it was one particular woman that was doing it. And once she was no longer, and it's kind of controversial how she became to be no longer, it stopped happening. Our operatives stopped dropping dead, basically, at that time, from those really weird things that couldn't be proven. So, yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Well, and the government, several governments have admitted to using sound for weapons, mostly for crowd control,
yes.
but also for disturbing our embassies and whatnot, with these frequencies to make people nervous,
Mhm.
to make them act irrationally, and other things. So it's not conjecture. Several governments around the world have admitted to this, and even have gone on to display their technology, thinking, "Oh, we're so humane." I mean,
Not really.
well, not really, because I'm here to tell you, if I knew what frequency the brown sound was, I would probably I would probably put it on a tape and play it over a loudspeaker.
Have we talked about that on here yet? I know
I
we
think
talked about it somewhere, but was it on here on the Fringe?
I
Brown
think it
sound kills
was.
me.
And see, this is why people like me are not allowed to know things like it is a very good thing. And I'm just playing with that. I would never use it, although
Whatever.
the
No, you
temptation would
would.
be there.
You would. You would do it and then be like, whoopsie.
How does it hurt anybody except their pride?
Oh, I
Kenzo
love it.
says I would have the Blues Brothers car with giant speaker on it.
He would.
I wouldn't, because I
No.
wouldn't want to get in trouble because I'm such a wuss. I'm sad. Sadly, I would not get away with it, and I realize this in advance, so I will not do it. But the temptation is there. The temptation is there.
That is great. Oh my goodness. So back to talk about remote viewing just for a minute. One of the guys that was working in the field, he was a teacher and a practitioner for like more than 20 years. And what he was explaining was, when they would get ready to do this, they would basically get into a trance-like state. And in order to do that, they would meditate. And one of the things that they would use to get them into that state of meditation is a binaural beat. And basically, it would be like, say, a drum beat, just 5 hertz or whatever. And it would just kind of get you, or 6 hertz, I guess, wherever they wanted to do it at. And this would pull them in and help them gather more information once they got into that, that alm state. And we'll talk a little bit about more about that too. But what was interesting about this is when they got into that state, they would get a lot of good information. He was actually on the team that went in after 9/11 to try to find out what was going on. And they were the ones that found an airplane. I think was it in South Africa, that had gone down, and were able to save some people off of that. And it was like so far into a remote area, there's no way it was chance that they found it. But what's really interesting about John's claims is while he was in this state at one point, he was working around a radio observatory, but he started to get these beings come through to him. So not only was he remote viewing, but they were like noticing him notice them, kind of thing. Does that make sense? And so he starts freaking out, going, "Oh my God, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming!" And that's what he was coming through on his end. And when he was freaking out, they were like, "No, he was in fight or flight. And this thing was telepathically communicating with him, saying, "Hey, we're here to help you. We want you to help us. It's okay. Calm down. And that's." And he was like, "Okay, I'm hallucinating. I've got into this too much." Hi, Sylvain.
Hi, Sylvain.
And so he's thinking, I'm burnt. I need to get out of this, basically. And then he talked to some of the other remote viewers, and they were seeing and hearing the same thing. And he was like, "Okay, something else is going on here," which is really cool because it's like they were learning without knowing that if they got into this beat, into this meditative state, that they could hit a different plane, basically. And this kind of goes back to, ancient man. And, you look at all the megaliths and things.
They were aware that certain sounds helped you reach a heightened state of awareness.
Absolutely. And we have completely gotten away from that,
Yeah,
in
and
our
now it's
world.
all mystical mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, it was brushed off. What's interesting, if you think about it, how quickly is information lost?
A generation.
It's gone. It's wiped. Yeah. That's all it takes. And when you come down to information that at the time was considered information that would be dangerous in the hands of the common man, so it's going to only go through, yes, Mr. Brown sound. So it's only going to go through, I don't want to say worthy, but specific
trustworthy
people, trustworthy, people that are going to do the right thing with it and not make people poop their pants.
Poop is funny. I can't help it.
It is funny. As long as it's not me, it's funny.
Right?
Yeah. But, that only these specific people knew this information. And if they were knocked out, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's just gone. And it's really sad because it makes sense, though, at the same time, because look at all these megalithic sites that we see that there's absolutely no way we could rebuild today. Crap happens. It does.
Enzo says, "Hey, crap happens." Do not, Enzo. I'm going to warn you right now, and Chris will reiterate this, and so will the girls. Do not get me started on poop jokes. I find them way too funny. I have the mentality of a 6-year-old. So please, for the love of all that's holy, do not get me started on poop jokes. I mean, I
I'm gonna move. I'm putting in a motion for us to change Mark's moniker from Swiss Cheesehead to Mr. Brown Sound.
I think I kind of that's like hilarious.
I mean, we can actually do that very simply.
Mr. Brown Sound. I think it's quite fitting.
Better than Mr. Brownstone.
I mean, we could
I
change
don't know.
the
I don't
song.
think I'd want to dance with Mr. Brownstown though.
Yeah, I don't
Good.
think his music is very good.
No.
And no.
I think his music stinks.
Ba-ba-dum.
Yes. Again,
Hilarious.
probably ought to keep that away from me.
Too funny.
In fact, Chris got on here and says, Enzo, do not encourage him.
Ba-dum.
We miss you with all of your great comebacks, Enzo. Okay. I'm trying to get back on track. That's not working very well.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's okay. It's perfectly
So, I mean, we know about a lot of these frequencies and what they do now, and we know that human biology really hasn't changed much. So that the ancients were aware of what these things do. Maybe not the numbers behind them, but the actual sounds themselves. I think it goes to show that in many ways, there are just so many things that have been lost through time that our ancestors knew.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, the recipe for good concrete, I always bring this out. The Romans made the best concrete, and it wasn't until the last 50 years that we figured out why.
Yeah.
So
you're right. You know what I think is really interesting about it? We've got all this information that was lost. Not only was it lost in one part of the world, this is information that was on so many different continents. They knew these harmonics. They used mandalas on their buildings. I mean, it was in their floor designs, and
they knew these sounds and they knew their
did.
patterns.
Which brings up another interesting question. How did they all know it?
Well, I have a theory about that because have you ever used a timpani?
Used what?
Have you ever been around a timpani and band?
No.
You can put your hand on a timpani drum, and when people are talking, you can actually hear it through the drum. So it would stand to reason that they, through some accident, discovered these patterns because somebody had spilled something on a drum head and they were singing really loudly or whatever, and they discovered these patterns and then just started playing with them.
So maybe with people that were much more in tune with the earth and everything else, and not
they didn't have our technology to distract them.
Yes, like we are. Absolutely. So, they had technology, they just had different knowledge. I guess they had knowledge just different.
Well, some tones also have an effect, like a literal physical effect on us too.
Oh yeah.
That's why some people get goosebumps when they listen to particular songs, or especially like stringed instruments. People will get goosebumps from it because they resonate.
List of common ones.
Okay.
174 hertz helps relieve pain and stress. So that's the one I'm going to download. 285 hertz heals tissues and organs. I want to play that overnight.
That's cool.
396 hertz liberates the listener from fear and guilt. So if you're feeling depressed, this is probably a good one.
Yeah.
417 hertz facilitates change up here. 528 hertz is for transformation and DNA repair.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
That's good because I assure you, from all the processed foods I've eaten, my DNA has suffered quite a bit of damage. 639 hertz supposedly helps you repair your relationships.
Huh.
So probably has something to do with the feeling of well-being. 741 helps provide solutions and self-expression. Again, all of these are mental effects. A lot of them are. Some of them are physical. 852 helps the listener back to a spiritual order. So this would be like I don't know what exact frequency the ohm frequency is, but this would be along those lines.
Yeah.
963 hertz helps to encourage a sense of oneness and unity. And I would almost bet that a lot of religious hymns hit that note quite a bit, because I have noticed in church a lot of those hymns really get that feeling of enlightenment. If you've ever
Mhm.
felt that, and I have the feeling that that is something to do with it. So, I mean, these are just some of the frequencies that people talk about. That and the Schumann resonance, not residence, which Dr. Schumann encountered, which is actually the natural vibration of the earth. So I'm sure Pam has some interesting things on that. And then there's all the stories about the ancients possibly using sound to produce miraculous things, which, I mean, there's a reason why we're going to talk about this for 2 different nights. There's just
Mhm.
so much on this. We can't
There's a,
even cover it in 2 nights. It's going to take,
Yeah.
but we can give
I mean,
you the basic background.
yeah. And I was looking
there's
this up when
theories
you
that
were. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I
I was
was
just gonna say there's theories on that. That's how the ancients moved the blocks for the
Mhm.
pyramid.
Yeah. We'll talk about that too,
So
because there's some
yeah.
interesting stuff on that. No, I was looking up what the frequency was for ohm, and it's 136.10 hertz.
So, I mean, they have determined through experimentation in ancient times what these frequencies do, and we're reproducing those experiments with our current technology. They most assuredly use their voices and stringed instruments and such as that. And I find it incredibly fascinating. Like I said, several of these are going to start living on my phone, so I can play them at night, maybe on a loop. Because I get a lot of pain. I have no known issues with my tissues and organs except for my knee, but I'm going to play it anyway. And I'm I'm down for repairing my DNA, whatever that entails. But we'll give it a shot, because if it works, it works.
Yeah.
And science is this is one of the next big things, I think. We're
I would
looking at.
agree with that. Yeah.
And
Really.
usually when you come up with stuff like this, science goes, "Oh, that's just hullabaloo. That's all malarkey. You guys are just wishful thinking." No, they're going like, "This stuff works."
And they did think that for a while, and that's probably another big reason why we lost so much of that information. But we were talking about this backstage. Even Nikola Tesla, he is quoted as saying, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." And he was a pretty smart dude.
And he was not a dummy.
Mhm.
No, it was a
The
little
fact that
weird, but
he was
I
a little
mean,
weird, but
so am I.
some what he gave to the world was way more than his
Yeah, I
peers.
mean, and he gave it away. I mean, like alternating current.
Yep.
He gave it away, and when people used his patents, he said, "Ah, they're doing good work.
Yeah, he
Just,
wasn't
just
worried
let him."
about it.
He
Yeah.
was very generous with us, and that's why he died alone and broke for the most part.
In love with a pigeon, wasn't that it?
Something like that. Yes,
Something like that. Yeah.
pigeons won't break your heart.
Poor
No,
dude.
but they'll crap on your windowsill.
Well, I mean,
That'd break my heart.
Maybe that's why he loved them. He could send them out and poop on his enemies. The original brown sound.
here is the picture of my hated enemy. I need you to dive bomb him when he's on a date with his girlfriend.
That's better. I can do it.
Oh,
So-
this is going to devolve, isn't it? I
This is
can
going
feel
to
it.
devolve into nonsense. I can tell you already. Much like anything to do with anything I'm involved with. I'm sorry. This is serious stuff, though. I mean, it's real. This isn't just some theory or whatnot. Most of the
I
stuff
mean,
we don't have
we
any
know it's
back
being
up.
used.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's used in the film industry a lot. There are varying undertones they throw underneath the music on movies to make
To
you
affect-
feel a certain way.
Yeah, to affect
Especially
your,
horror movies. There
Yeah.
is a tone that's so low that you don't really audibly think that you hear it, but it's how they get those really great jump scares in.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there in a completely quiet theater like you think you are. They're playing this tone underneath during those silent parts that is literally putting you on the edge of your seat, and you had no idea
Yes.
that it's actually happening.
It's subliminal. Absolutely
Mhm.
subliminal.
Yeah,
So
and
Yeah.
they
Manipulate.
manipulate your emotions
They
with
do.
sound. And
Mhm.
anybody who thinks that that's malarkey, how do you feel when you think of a song that makes you feel good? Why does it make you feel good? A lot of times when you go to listen to the lyrics, lyrics aren't that good. It's the music behind the lyrics.
Mhm.
It's the tonalities. It's the harmonies. They affect your emotion. I mean, listen to classical music. The music affects your emotions. You can hear the story in your heart as the music plays, and that was a true art form as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm not a classical music guy, although I do enjoy listening occasionally. But really, those old masters were masters at manipulating the emotions of the people who listen to their music. And so this is not a new thing. It's something that's been part of our lives, our whole lives. We've just not given it much thought.
And you're right when you say, music and acoustics, they're so very important. Could you imagine what our world would be like without music?
Right.
Mhm.
It would be horrible.
There's
It would be
I say
terrible.
that.
there's a reason why you play things in a minor key that it sounds different if you play the same music in a major.
Yeah.
Listen to the Darth Vader march. It's in a minor key. What happens when you play it in a major key? It sounds like a circus.
I
Mhm.
bet it would.
It does. I had it someplace at one time. It's bizarre how different it is just by changing from a major to a minor key.
Mhm.
So, I mean, these things affect your emotions. How you um, how you visualize and
No, well, I just thought of something too. We're talking about different ways that acoustics are used now, or how things are used to affect people now that we don't think of. Think about the rumbler that some of the police cars have, where if you don't see their lights and they're behind you, they'll hit that rumble and it goes through your soul,
Yeah.
basically,
Mhm.
and it will startle you. And yeah, I mean, you feel it. It not only do you, and you may not hear it, but you sure feel it. And that is nothing but
Mhm.
sound, and it's
Yeah.
affecting you physically.
Oh yeah.
And when I was a kid, I don't know what it was with the TGNY stores. Is that what they were?
TGNY, yes.
TGMY.
Why did that just leave my head?
Well, you were younger, so the TGNY stores went away. You were very small.
I remember them
No,
well. I
I
wasn't
went to
that
TGMY
young.
stores.
Yeah.
Probably about the
I
I
time
think
you
they
guys
started
were
shutting
10.
down in the early '90s. Is when they started shutting down.
Um,
The last one I saw was probably in the late 80s. Yeah.
the reason I bring that up is because when I was a little kid, and it didn't happen in any other store, but when mom would take me into that one, I would scream and cry because the second I walked in the door, there would be this piercing, high pitched tone, and it hurt me. It hurt my head, and I couldn't go into the stores with her. When she wouldn't think about it, we'd walk into one and just immediate. And we never did figure out what it was. The only thing that we could think of was maybe there was a high pitched whine on their cash registers or something like that. We didn't know because it was, right when you walk in the store is when it would hit. And it was consistent,
It was their anti-Pam device.
must have been.
Might have
I don't
been. Maybe
know.
they're trying to keep little kids out.
I was fine
Now,
everywhere else.
we're going to be in trouble when somebody comes up with a sound that makes us want to spend money. because it will be on everything.
Oh yeah.
If it's not already. If
Yeah.
it's not already.
I don't know. They play specific music in Walmart and different stores just to get you going,
Hmm.
I mean, you're not wrong.
and grocery stores. You know, you get that upbeat
Elevators play
music.
music made to calm you down because elevators scare some people.
Yeah. They
I
scare
mean,
both my sons. I don't know why. Nothing ever
They
happened
put
to
me
them.
to sleep. The elevator music just makes me so tired.
it's very calming.
I'm just like, ugh, I'm so sleepy.
And that's part of the point. Certain sounds have that effect on you physiologically. It's not just because you find it soothing mentally that it just trips something that you didn't know you had. It does trip something you didn't know you have because these frequencies affect your emotions. They affect your well-being.
They do.
And they say that our modern technology blocks and disrupts a lot of these sounds. So, uh, introducing them from an artificial source can be beneficial to your health. They've isolated songs or music tones that affect your digestive system, that'll affect your kidneys, your liver. Uh,
It's pretty cool.
it is cool. Uh, it's just crazy. And the patterns that these sounds create when uh, I can't remember the name of the device they use, Pam,
For
for displaying these sounds.
you mean the
Clinometer?
no, it's the hang on. It's Clodney pattern. Is that what you mean? The Clodney?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go one more in, I think.
this is a sound. These are sounds. These are those
Yes.
patterns. These are sounds you hear every day, and you'll see them on tiles done in ceramic in buildings that are hundreds of years old. Uh, they were aware of them. They knew how to recreate them, and they knew what those sounds were, and they figured out how they affect human beings. Um,
You know what
music,
was this one? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. This is the interesting one because this is Ohm. Um, what's his name? Oh shoot. Jenny. Hans Jenny, is that his name? He put Ohm on a Clodney plate to see. He resonated it at the 100. What was it? What did I say it was? 13.5.
1,300 or something like that.
Yeah. And it popped this right here, which is also shows the dot for the center of the universe. Basically,
Right.
is what Ohm is. So when they say that the universe resonates at Ohm, they knew this already thousands of
This
years
is the
ago.
music of the spheres.
Hmm.
You can picture this as a sun and the orbits of planets.
Yeah.
Even though they're more elliptical, it's still kind of a representation of that. So
Yes, and Music of the Spheres is actually Pythagoras, which is really cool because he was way back in time. He was, let me find him here.
yeah,
6th century BC. That's how far back he was. He was a famous Greek mathematician. He was a philosopher, and he's the one that made the acoustic discovery that pretty much changed everything. He's the one that figured some of this stuff out. Um, he thought the universe. He thought of it as operating like a harmonious whole, and he compared it to a lyre at the time. It's an instrument. It's kind of like a harp, but it's got different strings on it. Um, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I have zero musical background or talent. But each string vibrates at a different frequency. It produces a different sound. So he thought that each planet in the solar system vibrated at its own frequency, and he produced what he called the music of the spheres that Mark was talking about.
I mean, and that's likely actually. Um,
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on the magnetic field, the size,
Hmm.
uh, the activity in the core, all these things will change the vibration of these planets. The Schumann resonance, for instance, is the Earth's frequency, and there are three of them. There are the fundamental mode at 7.83 hertz, the second order at 14.1 hertz, and the third order at 20.3 hertz. And those are known as the Schumann resonance. And they're very low frequency. Probably the only thing on the planet that can hear them is probably elephants, because they communicate over long distance using very low frequency sound.
Which is interesting in
Infrasound.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
which is
a lot of
interesting.
animals use resonance for
Whales.
I don't know if you guys did you guys read up on the honeybee resonance?
I did not. I did not see that.
So interesting. And I'd never actually heard of this before, but it absolutely makes sense. So honeybees, their wings, when they move their wings, which they're constantly doing, which I guess people don't actually realize, they're always moving their wings because that's how they communicate with their hive.
That makes sense.
But they flutter their wings at a perfect resonance. It's called the honeybee resonance. And that resonance, if you throw it up on a plate, guess what shape it makes?
What's that?
A hexagon. The shape of their
like
cones.
a honeycomb.
That is amazing.
That's interesting.
Yes. And through the old, the old ways, they say, like what Mark was saying, this resonance is used for this, for healing that, for doing this, for doing that. That resonance that the honeybees hum creates healing and imperviousness to toxins, which is actually what honey is.
Yeah, it's got antibiotic.
Honey has healing powers, and it's antibacterial. It's impervious.
That's
And
neat.
it belongs solely to honeybees. But yeah, if you throw it up on a plate, it becomes the hexagons. It creates the honeycomb.
That's so cool. I love it.
See, I mean, even nature understands, and it's not magic. It's not anything paranormal or anything like we would discuss on this show, which I believe most of the things we discuss on this show and you ladies' show are real or close enough to real to make them, real. But these are hard facts. These are written down. There is some dispute, but less and less every day.
Absolutely.
As people study this. And like I said, we have been aware of some of this for centuries. It just wasn't recognized as anything but coincidence a lot of times. Or the science behind it wasn't understood. And we're starting to understand that. And I think that this is a valuable show for people to listen to, because you can research some of these sounds that are beneficial, and you can put them on your iPod or whatever, or play them in the background while you're working, and it will make your day better. It will make you feel better. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. That's just the power of sound.
Interesting. You're talking about how so much of this is being proven more every day. NASA has been able to record sounds coming out of the planets. And it pretty much proved Pythagoras' notion of the music of the spheres, that it actually is correct, which is really cool. He had that figured out, 2,000, 3,000 years ago? 2,000 years ago, I guess. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. I find it absolutely amazing that these things exist, and the powerful effects that they can have on you, on your physical and mental well-being, or your physical and mental distress. Like the Russians were using dissonance to cause migraines and things in an American embassy, so that they could create chaos and try to get one up on our people. So it should be no
Some,
surprise that
some
this is a
Havana
double-edged.
syndrome.
Pardon me.
Just set that up. Havana syndrome.
I believe, yeah, I believe that's what we're talking about. Although it's happened in several embassies, I believe.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure that's what Havana syndrome is.
yeah,
Everyone that was been affected by it said that the first thing that happened was that they heard this ungodly noise inside their head.
Yep.
yeah, and they did that with microwaves, didn't they? To make the walls vibrate, they implanted stuff in the walls.
Mhm.
So,
I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but
but
yeah.
it's
It's caused massive memory loss and all kinds of
oh yeah,
really,
and
really bad problems.
irrationality and all sorts of
Basically, brain damage.
all
Mhm.
sorts of symptoms. Um, and these sounds can cause you to expire. They can kill you, albeit slowly, because you could uh, play a subaudible sound that causes people to be more stressed instead of less stressed. Uh, I don't know what those sounds are. I really don't want to know what those sounds are. But it can happen. And the noise our technology makes, if I remember what I read yesterday was correct, a lot of our technology makes these sounds that makes us uncomfortable, or blocks out the natural sounds that help us. And so when you get back to nature and you restore that balance, that's why you feel when you go camping, for instance, that's why when you come back, you feel so refreshed many times, even though you really didn't rest that much. Um, the outside world wasn't blocking those resonances, which are healing to you. So if you can introduce them to your life artificially, it's probably not as good as the natural sounds, but again, it would be something that I plan on trying. So,
We were talking a little bit about how different animals communicate with um,
infrasound and ultrasound.
infrasound. Yeah, thank you. And I was looking for something I had in my notes, and it's on the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. And back in 2015, some researchers with the Hatfield Marine Science Center, they were scanning the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part in the ocean, listening for whale calls. And but they ended up picking up something unexpected. They heard these eerie booming sounds um, that were coming from way, way down, and they did sound a little like whale sounds, but they couldn't be attached to any known species. Um, it's about 8 miles down is about how far it was, but it didn't seem like an animal, a natural sound. It seemed like a very technological noise. Um, and what they realized, they're pretty sure at this point that it's more technological in nature. So could this be coming from a base that's down in the Mariana Trench? Maybe there is something still down there, because we talk a lot about aliens being extraterrestrial. What if they're what if they are of our planet but in the ocean? And is it possible?
And even more frightening, what if it's uh, other countries that have the technology to have bases that deep?
That's terrifying.
That is absolutely terrifying, which is part of I think, is the most terrifying thing about the whole UAP UFO thing. What if it's not ours, but it did originate with one of our so called enemies or actual enemies? What if they have that technology? Now, some of them I know they don't, because they would have shown it to us or they would have used it. But I mean, that's the frightening thing about that.
It is.
Enzo
Blue.
says the blue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what it was, Enzo.
Boop.
Which did not sound normal. It sounded very technological. I couldn't remember what it was, and I don't know if it's out there somewhere. It may be on YouTube somewhere, actually.
Probably is. Everything's on YouTube now,
which is really weird.
including us. Please stop by and visit us. Remember to like, comment, and share.
Yay!
And ring that bell.
That's awesome.
So, while we're on that episode, remember to go and find what is the name of our site anyway? I think it's Bordertown Paranormal Society, isn't it?
Oh, our website is
yeah.
bordertownparanormal.com.
Our YouTube channel, is it?
YouTube channel.
Is it SEK Bordertown Paranormal?
It was SEK, yes.
Yes, I believe so. I visit it all the time. I can't remember the title. We really ought to remember that more.
The one that's got all our old stuff on there is SEK BPS.
Yes.
P as in boy, P as in Paul, S as in Sam.
And then there's Bordertown Strange.
Yes.
So, please go out and visit. Like, comment, and share.
So, absolutely. Get us out there more, please. You know what I thought was interesting when I was going through some of this is we talked a little bit about Om being the resonance of the universe, basically. And what I think is interesting about that is, Om is a sacred sound. Everybody has heard it at one time or other. If you think of the old, sitting there doing their yoga, going Om kind of thing. It's actually it's a sacred sound in the Eastern religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. And what's cool about it is Om is made up of 3 letters. It's A, U, and M, and they are combined to make the sound of Om. But it's not only found in Hinduism. It's also used in Buddhism and Sikhism as well. And this first appeared in the Vedas, which is the religious text that form the foundation of Hinduism. So this has been around as long as man's been around, probably longer than man's been around.
These same texts, which go on to describe what sounds very much like flying machines, and soldiers carrying chemical rifles, and all sorts of things that we would not expect. If you read them, they're very disturbing sometimes, or depending on your point of view, encouraging. The thought that we have had the technology similar to what we've had right now before and then lost it is not a new theory, and is one that we plan to explore on other shows, and have explored on other shows, but I intend to go down that rabbit hole again. So I really won't. But the Vedas is a very interesting document.
It is. It's extremely.
So if you can find a translation of it, I encourage you to read it.
It talks a lot about, the text talks a lot about specific vibrations that are created through like the ritualistic chanting, singing and prayer. And that's not only in these religions. You've got the Druids, that do the, what is it? The chants, the Druidic chants and things you can get. Those are so interesting. And they just, if you listen to them, I would encourage anybody to, because they just give you this incredible, almost an otherworldly feel when you listen to them.
The same thing happens with those big tabernacle choirs.
Yes.
Because they get those different levels of tones just ringing underneath the music.
Well,
underneath
And if you look at the 2 scales, there are actually 2 scales. One is the modern scale, and then the older scale, which I cannot remember who developed it, but this is the same scale they use for the what were those chants the old Christian monasteries did?
That's what I was trying to come up with. I said druid. I don't think it's right.
My brain just went.
Um,
It just went out the window. I can wave bye to it. But yeah, I mean, these sounds are powerful. They have a huge impact on your mental and spiritual well-being and your physical well-being, or lack of it, if they're used incorrectly.
very much so.
So
I still can't think what that's called. I don't remember.
it's on the tip of my tongue.
I know, and
I honestly, and it's in my notes around here
it
someplace.
is mine too. I thought I could just
But I've got
search it. And it's not.
I've got at least 20 pages of notes pulled up over here on the side, and that I can find anything on any given day is, well, quite frankly, proof that miracles do exist. So
Gregorian
Gregorian chant,
that's it.
yes.
Good job.
They tap into
I was
that
trying
old.
to Google it.
Yay, internet!
Woohoo! That's exactly what it is. You need to listen to it if you have not.
My brain, people. I don't know why people listen to me speak, because my brain is literally Mr. Brown sound in my head, I guess, because my head is full of brown stuff that we don't want to talk about, or Swiss cheese. I don't know.
And we brought it right back around to it again.
Either one is bad enough. So the struggle is real, folks. I apologize for my
You know what I thought was
lack of
interesting on
intelligence.
this? Yeah, you're fine. You're funny. That's what makes it all okay.
Oh well.
It's bringing up how important the spoken word is, how important the tones are. And something that I had never considered that I ran across was someone saying, even in Christianity, if you look at Genesis, and how does it say God created the world? In the beginning was the Word. He spoke it. He spoke it into being. There again is, it's not just words or intellect. It's a whole tonal thing. Which is really cool.
And any being that powerful, those words would not be anything we would recognize. They would be probably to us sound like whale sounds or something.
Tones, yeah.
Tones. They would be totally beyond our comprehension. So,
or angels, you can't hear them speak, or your ears will bleed, kind of thing. It's probably along the same lines of it's something that we couldn't
comprehend.
Yeah.
We're not physically made to comprehend that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what people believe around here, but I mean, from a Christian point of view, you're not supposed to be able to comprehend God, or probably any God for that matter. Your ancient magical traditions, almost all of them include some sort of chanting or auditory component. And studies have shown that, when they're doing their voodoo thing, that it doesn't work without the music and the stuff to get they can actually change your heart rate with the music.
Yes.
And get you to do things you wouldn't ordinarily want to do. So a lot of the magical traditions around the world have a lot to do with sound. Amongst the indigenous populations all over the world. So
that drum beat, that boom, 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 boom.
And a lot of them have the same similar cadences and patterns, because those are what affect your psyche and your body. And that's science. That's not mumbo jumbo.
Mm-hmm.
Or
we're not pulling this stuff out of the air. This is actual.
This is science. This is studies that have been done, and you can look them up.
There's a reason why we have stadium music. Why there's such a thing.
Right. I mean, it gets you pumped up and ready to
it gets you pumped up. It gets you excited about the game. It gets the players excited about what they're doing. It brings their levels up
to
a higher Yeah.
And any coach will tell you 90% of the game is
It's
mental,
adrenaline.
is right there.
Yep.
So if you can get that in sync with each other, I mean, it promotes teamwork. It promotes all sorts of things to help the body get ready for activity like that. Even the ancient war chants and stuff, they were designed to get the heart going, to, you know, hype you up and get you mentally prepared to do things that you would not ordinarily be prepared to do.
Even if you look at like the dancing to bring on the rains or the crops or whatever, you have to get yourself into that mental state, and what
Right.
better way to do it than to follow that beat.
Follow that beat, follow that
And
music.
like the remote viewing, they get you into that one space, they get you into that part of your brain where you can really focus on what you're doing, and it's the same in all of that.
Right.
And
So
what's really cool on this stuff is, if you look at the ancient, um, like the cathedrals and things like that. Yes.
we probably badly pronounced it. Sorry, Enzo. The Vimanas.
I'm sure we did.
Oh, we butcher everything we say. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
and
If there's a way to mispronounce it, I'm going to do it.
Same. I mean,
I'm going to do it.
it's a superpower.
It is.
You should be proud.
What I think is really cool, and you were talking earlier, Jess, about the choirs and the tones that they hit. A lot of the buildings, even cathedrals, are built to be acoustically perfect or to hit that certain resonance.
Right.
So when they hit those tones, it goes into your soul. It, you feel it in your bones. You feel it.
You can feel that feeling of enlightenment that flows through you. And it's like, I feel like I've just been touched by God Almighty himself.
Like you had an experience. Yeah.
It's possible that is exactly what you're feeling. It's also possible that the feeling was produced artificially by the acoustics and the sounds, or the sounds may be intentional to get you into the mindset where you're in touch with a greater.
And that's it.
They do say that about the Sistine Chapel with the famous ceiling paintings. Of course, the church was probably built that way, so then when the singing happened and the praises happened, that would resonate correctly. But now that area is really just for people to come in and view the paintings, and they say the ceilings are very high. If anybody's ever been there, I've never been there. I would love to go, but I've heard they're very high.
They're beautiful.
But people talk at a normal tone down below on the floor, but it resonates so well in there that it goes up to the ceiling and it comes back down, and you hear all of these conversations happening, but they're in this very toned whisper by the time they get back to you, and it creates this ambiance in the room. You're not hearing the conversations on the floor around you. You're hearing it above you, and it's like an ethereal situation. And there's some people that think that the paintings that are up there aren't as good as we think they are, but the situation you're in while you're viewing them is so enlightening and so fulfilling that it's like a whole show, basically, is what happens. And that's just from being in there with them. Yeah, exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean,
no, it's I would love to experience it myself.
And I think that every major religion that has ever been has made use of these sounds and tools and tones to bring their flock closer to the Almighty, whatever you want to call your Almighty. And I'm not going to say it's just the tones themselves affecting you naturally, because that's what a lot of people say. Or if the tones are just putting you more in tune with the greater universe so that you can connect with, whatever entity or entities you believe in. Personally, I am a Christian, but uh, I I don't think that uh, I don't think that reduces anybody else's belief in their chosen religion, because I think that everything is connected,
It is.
just like you and I are connected. Um, I mean, we all have somewhat different beliefs, and that's fine. And odds are we actually believe in the same things with different names. Um,
There's a lot of different paths to the same thing.
I think I think labels aren't as important as a lot of people place on them. I, since so many of these belief systems are so similar, I have the feeling that it is all connected when we get right down to it. So uh, when I say these things about the sounds having these effects, I'm not trying to diminish anybody's faith in whatever uh, deity that they choose to follow, because I have the deep down feeling that whatever label you put on it, it's probably the same.
You know what's interesting is the oldest building that I have ever personally been in is the new church in Delft, Holland. It was built in the 1000s. The old church was built in the 800s, or yeah, the 800s. So,
I've seen
they're both
pictures. It's lovely.
really freaking old. And you walk in and you just feel, I mean, the atmosphere is just absolutely amazing. And if you take that, the acoustics of the place, because it's gorgeous and it's huge and it's got the big vaulted ceilings and
Right.
everything that would play into all of that acoustically. If you take into the fact that more than likely it was built on a ley line as well,
Oh
you're
yeah.
also going to
Just to
have that
prove that.
energy running through it from that.
Hmm.
And almost, every place of power of age is on a ley line, you know.
Absolutely. And
So
that's
it's going
where
to
we
be a
start getting to
combination.
things we can't prove yet, but we will.
Right, absolutely. But um, you take that as a combination with the acoustics, and that makes a lot of sense. Why you have that feeling just walking in, even if no one's singing. Even if nothing out of the ordinary is happening. Because I
Yeah.
still remember that vividly, the feeling of just walking
Hmm.
through the
Yeah.
doors.
And I believe that's intentional. I
Yeah.
believe that is to bring you closer to
Well, just
enlightenment
touching the walls,
specifically.
it's like you get the feeling of, this is so old. How many other people have gazed upon this wall? How many other people have walked upon these stones, kind of thing.
And that's why I like
Just a
history.
very sobering. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Very sobering. But no, I think that's really cool. And what I really like about it is even on the old chapels and things, you'll see mandalas. And if you get really back into the older, you know, pre everything, basically megaliths that are out there, you're going to see mandalas on there. And what's really cool is back then they knew what sound, what that specific mandala
Look
represented.
like, yeah.
It was basically they're leaving a map on there of, hey, this is a sound that's coincides with this specific place. And it's too bad that we've lost some of that, but it's really exciting that we're starting to get back to that knowledge that has been lost.
And you've brought up something that I really want to touch. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but it's something I really wanted to touch on uh, while I listen to you. Uh, just because the level of technology in ancient times was not the same as ours, we built our technology on the backs of our fathers and mothers and their fathers and mothers ad infinitum. Uh, they may not have known everything that we knew, but they knew a whole lot more than we know about the natural world. They were
Absolutely.
not dumb. They were not stupid. We did not bring ourselves up from uh, nomadic hairy
Mhm.
men with clubs from nothing. Human beings are inherently intelligent, thoughtful, and really, if you get down to it, the scientific method was born long before anybody ever codified it.
Yes, it was.
So,
Yeah.
And who are we to say that we're smarter than they were? We can't even figure out how they built some of these freaking places.
No.
right?
Not even now. There's some of these that have, I don't know, they're 1,000,000 pounds. There's I can't remember the name of the place. It's got like 3 stones on it, and they're like 1,000,000 pounds a piece or something like it.
Yeah. How
It's
did
like a
people move them?
ridiculous amount. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
find it but we can't figure out how they did it. We can't even get close to being able to figure out how they moved
Yeah.
something
Our
that large.
ancestors were very intelligent.
They had their own technology. It's just not our technology.
Yeah,
we,
It's a
we wouldn't
different kind
recognize
of
all of it.
technology. Yeah.
absolutely. Here it is. It's in Baalbek, Lebanon. It's a 9,000-year-old temple of Jupiter, and it contains 3 of the largest monolithic stones in the world. Oh, I was way off in the weight. Oh, no, I wasn't too far off. Weighing approximately 1,000 tons or 2,000,000 pounds each. So it's 2,000,000 pounds each.
So you underestimated it.
I underestimated by
You
half.
Well, for instance, another thing, most people do not realize the Roman Colosseum and many of the Colosseums of that time, most of them had retractable roofs.
That's
Did you realize
incredible.
that?
That is
And
incredible.
we know how they made them. They were made out of sailcloth, and they used pulleys and ropes. And by pulling on one rope one way, you could close the roof, or pulling the other way, it would open the roof.
Mhm.
Now, we have yet to figure out the engineering behind all those ropes and pulleys,
Yeah.
but we know that's what
Not
they
to
use.
not to mention that those Colosseums were made to open and close and be so watertight that they could flood them and have ship battles inside.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it's amazing the technology that we know existed, but we've lost, and we know we've lost it.
Mhm.
No, we found the tools that prove our ancient ancestors did brain surgery with
Yes.
copper and stone tools, and people survived. They saved people's lives. Not everybody survived. Not everybody survives surgery now, but our ancestors were able to do it. They had devices made to take the cataracts out of your eyes. So the fact that they were able to determine not only what these sounds were, what they affected, they determined what they look like. So it shouldn't be a surprise to people, really, at all, that our ancestors were this smart, because we're this smart.
Mhm.
And
They would probably laugh at us now
they would.
at the things
What a
that we
bunch
have
of fools!
forgotten. You
What a
know?
bunch of fools!
Yeah.
We've gotten soft,
Hmm.
honestly.
Oh yeah,
All of us, me,
absolutely.
you, everybody. We depend so much on our technology that we have forgotten what it's like to work 15 hours a day just so that we have food on the table the next.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We complain when we hit 40 hours a week. Oh, I don't have time. I don't have any leisure time. Our ancestors didn't have that until Henry Ford came along. The standard work week was 6 10-hour days, which I work many times, and it's no fun. I'll grant you that, but it's not impossible. You shouldn't complain about it, because most of our ancestors throughout history had to work a lot harder, a lot longer, and still be able to count their ribs through their clothing from a distance. I mean,
Look where we would be at today. I mean, this falls right under the what if tomorrow
right, it does.
canopy, because where would we be at today if something happened? You know,
We'd be back in the Stone Age.
absolutely. And how many people would immediately die? Almost immediate. I say
Nope.
immediately, within a few months, because they couldn't, fend for themselves, basically.
Over 90% of the
technology, without
population, according to DARPA, over 90% of the population of the world would be gone in 6 months.
that's wild.
Starvation, weather, predation from other humans, 90% or more. So, I mean, that's what would happen.
I wonder if maybe that's what has happened in the past. I
I
mean,
think
the
it
only things
has.
that have, it has to have, because the only things that have survived are the things that don't go away, like the stone,
The
you know,
stone.
things that aren't going to just, everything that we have, it would be gone in how many years? What, 200 years? It'd be completely gone.
Yeah, you wouldn't find much trace of anything. And even if the technology wasn't, I mean, I would be interesting to see if microplastics exist far down in the fossil record, just out of curiosity. But I don't think we would recognize the technologies of our forefathers, even if they. You can have a high technology and not be, computer screens and video game ready. I truly believe that when everybody else was in a Stone Age um, technological level, the people of Atlantis, I believe they existed, and I believe they were somewhere in the Bronze Age. When they talk about what is it, Orichalcum, when I hear it described, it sounds an awful lot like bronze to me. Which a Bronze Age civilization is definitely intelligent enough to create ships to visit the entire planet, especially when the oceans were much lower.
What is the
So
mechanism that was found? Do you remember? It was like a calendar.
that was an ancient Greek mechanism,
Oh,
the
Yes.
Antikythera uh,
Yes, 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 yes,
mechanism. And
yes.
they've determined that it was a way to track the planets and stuff for navigation, I believe.
Hmm.
mhm.
So, I mean, we've had technology, um, and it took us years to figure out, even though he left us the drawing, Archimedes designed a device to accurately measure miles.
Hmm.
It was a cart, and you pushed it, and every mile a marble would drop down, and then you'd place a marker. That was your mile marker. They couldn't get it to work for years until somebody realized that the teeth on the gears had to be triangular, and that all the math in it was designed around trigonometry because modern gears wouldn't make it work.
Because
Once they figured that out, it worked perfectly. So
they were smart. They were
our
just smart in a
ancestors were
different way
not
than we
dumb.
are. No,
No,
not at all.
they designed concrete domes that we would have trouble making today with modern technology that have lasted 2,000 years.
Look at Puma Punku. You know, that's in, where's that at? Bolivia. Um, it's, you see all these 100-ton blocks, and they think they're at least 2,000 years old, and they may be way earlier than that, but they are precision cut. They are, you can't get a piece of paper between the cuts in these
Right.
blocks. They don't know how they did it. They have no clue. And if you look at them, they really look like they were machined. You know,
Yeah.
they've got
Mhm.
the
Well, they probably
cutouts on
were,
them, and
Cam. They
yeah.
probably were,
You probably were.
just not by a technology that we recognize. Whether that be sonics, which we'll talk about in the next episode, we're going to talk about some of these ancient technologies, um, and more. Uh, that being said, we're coming up close to our normal stopping point. Um, but yeah, our ancestors were not stupid
Not
or by any measure of the word. Um, so that they were capable of machining stone blocks. We know that we found evidence of the ancient Egyptians using machining technology on their monuments.
yep.
We don't know what those machines look like, but we know that we see tool marks that look very much like modern tool marks
Mhm.
from high-speed milling machines. Yeah, they probably looked different. They probably operated on an entirely different power source, probably human or animal or water, but they had them.
Yeah.
We've got evidence that shows that they must have had them. So it's not hard to imagine that now that we're discovering the benefits of all these sounds that have been known forever, we're finally proving them. It doesn't surprise me that our ancestors found them also. They're part of nature.
Yeah.
So, and our ancestors were a whole lot closer to nature than we are today, for the most part. But I'm anxious for 2 weeks from now when we talk about this again. I think, unless I miss my guess, we want to talk more about the possibilities of the ancients using these for
Absolutely.
levitation and
Yes.
all sorts
Yeah.
of things.
How they did it.
And I'd like to jump into just a little bit of the paranormal side of it too.
Oh, go ahead.
We've got,
Absolutely.
well, like for the next time. So like crop circles. There's theories that this is how
Yes.
crop circles are created, and they have recorded these resonances that just ring within them until they die out. The resonance dies out, and then the ring's gone. So there's something there.
We've talked about
The
things we can
mysterious,
find.
the ringing and the booms that some people hear in
Yeah.
some particular places where they just can't even live there for the sounds.
Tau sound.
Yeah.
And maybe even I had been looking into the fact that maybe the spirits, ghosts, ring at a resonance because they're on a separate plane than us, and that is why cats and dogs recognize them so readily. It's not because they're seeing a ghost, it's because they're hearing the resonance that we can't hear.
So 2 weeks from tonight, be
Interesting.
prepared, because tonight we've talked about things that science has agreed with, and next week we're going to go off the edge and into the fringe.
Ah.
So, and be sure in next week on Wednesday, what is your show going to be about on Bordertown Strange?
Our next
Our next one is gonna be on ghost animals.
yes.
And our animals' relationships to ghosts and the supernatural and their reactions to it and stuff. We're gonna like take a deep dive on all of that.
I
Maybe a fun
can't
one.
wait to watch.
There's a lot of good stuff out there on it
I
too.
might even join you if you let me.
Started my research. Absolutely.
You can absolutely join us, but you got to gather up some tales too to tell.
I actually have a few.
Oh,
So
Well, awesome. Well, I think we all three probably have some personal stories we could probably add
yes,
to that.
I do. I have seen some awfully strange behavior from some of my pets over the years, and then had weird things happen. Or, I mean, my dogs, when I was a kid, for instance, always knew 20 minutes. I always knew 20 minutes before my parents got home because the dogs went to the door.
Huh.
So, I mean, whether
They were
they're going
tuned
to be
into the
later on
resonance
time, yeah,
of your vehicle.
yeah. I mean,
Perhaps.
perhaps. So, yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, I'd like to wish everybody a good night and
Happy Memorial Day.
happy
For those
Memorial
in the
Day
US.
weekend.
Absolutely.
Now you have to go back to work and live your life of drudgery.
Yeah.
I, for one, have already been informed that I will be working 6 days a week until the end of the quarter. So
Yay.
possibly 7 occasionally. So,
Ugh.
or possibly 12-hour days. They haven't decided which yet.
Oh goodness. 12-hour days with a day off would be better, I would think.
Make that money.
Well, Uncle Sam will come out smelling like a rose as always. So I don't mind the work. I actually enjoy my work.
There's
So
Stewie.
there goes Stuart.
Stewie comes strolling through.
But it's going to leave me precious little time to enjoy our little hobbies and fun things that we do. But I will still be there.
Yay.
So, with that being said, I wish you all a good night.
Good night, everybody.